let everybody get a chance to have a seat. I have been examining my beliefs regarding my assumptions about our world with regards to whiteness. Today, you might hear the term white supremacy culture and believe that we are talking about white nationalism. However, within our UU movement and the wider world, we are being asked to think about white supremacy culture and how we, as unchallenged white people, are and have been responsible for maintaining that culture. This is difficult work because none of us thinks of ourselves as people who promote a white supremacy culture. We are liberals, after all. We stand up for others' rights. I'm going to hold on to my papers. But we also make tons of assumptions. And we haven't worked hard enough to examine, challenge, and change those assumptions. And it's embarrassing to realize and acknowledge the assumptions I've had, or maybe you've had, regarding people who are experiencing oppression. We believe that we, the enlightened and liberal ones, are supposed to know better. Growing up, I believed that the police were friendly people who were there to help you if you needed help. I can't say that I had a lot of experience with police officers outside of career day or seeing them on site at a traffic collision. We often had a white officer come to class on career day, always named Officer Bill, who explained that he was there to protect us and keep us safe, that if we just followed all the rules, everyone would be okay. Surely these experiences helped me form the opinion and the idea that police only come for you when you are doing something wrong. Maybe you, like me, held some of those same assumptions. When I got a little older, I had some experience with police officers. You know, those experiences where you're rushing somewhere and you see those red and blue lights in your rearview mirror. That sinking feeling that you got that was tied to consequences that you knew you would have to pay, such as taking a driving class, paying a fine, or having a point on your record. You, like me, probably thought of ways that you might talk yourself out of the fine. What excuse could I use? How could I ask to be let off just this one time? If you pull over, act respectful, and cooperate, then the police will treat you respectfully, give you your consequence, and that will be the end of it. This is what I believed. This is what I was taught to believe. However, developing a wider perspective with age and the rise in technology helped me pay attention to the continual other story of Black and brown people and how they experience getting stopped by the police. I had to examine the assumptions that I had, and these assumptions are embarrassing. Perhaps you too have had embarrassing assumptions. Like maybe you assumed that the person stopped had actually done something so wrong, which is why the consequence of taking his life must have been justified. Philando Castile was pulled over. He acted respectfully and cooperated. He informed the officer that he had a gun, which, by the way, he was licensed to carry and was not obligated to share, for those of us who don't know a lot about gun laws. Watching the video, you hear all of this, and you see the officer panic and shoot Philando Castile 5 times, resulting in his death next to his girlfriend and in front of his 4-year-old daughter. I mean, isn't what we were taught, if you just pull over and act respectful and cooperate, then the police will give you your consequence and that will be the end of it? This is what I was taught. This is what I believe. The news of Black and brown people being stopped and then killed over and over again in this country confirms that life and even existence is not experienced the same by everyone. I, for one, certainly never worry or fear for my life when I see those red and blue lights in my rearview mirror, as I'm sure most of you don't either. And I'm still working on what that means, and knowing that and sitting in that discomfort of my privilege can help me be a better ally to Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. I have many miles yet to go. We have many miles yet to go. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning. Salam alaikum, peace of the morning to you, and namaste. That which is radiant within me honors that which is radiant within you. I think right there we have an antidote to white supremacy culture and acknowledging the many ways that we say hello and the many languages that are spoken within our community and beyond our community. I want to welcome you to this service on the antidotes of white supremacy culture on this windy Sunday morning. In some traditions, we say this is the Ruach, the breath of Hashem, the breath of the Holy. So what a blessing it is to have that breeze in our midst. I'm joined this morning by our extraordinary worship team, music director Sonder Choi, and our worship associate Cassie Winters, and our many beloved musicians, and our tech team, our ushers and greeters, and our sexton. We are glad to be joining you for this morning's service. If this is your first time joining us, or you're still new to our congregation, we bid you a special welcome and hope you'll take time to explore our beautiful new website and online news magazine to learn more about our church and meet with our folks at the visitors table in the courtyard following the service. We light our chalice this morning with these words from Sister Outsider, Essays and Speeches by Audre Lorde. It is not our differences that divide us. It is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. The lighting of this chalice, may we all better recognize, accept, and celebrate our differences.
don't always tell you about how hard it is to follow something like that. That was amazing. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Community Church of Santa Monica. I am Cassie Winters, your worship associate for this morning. We are delighted to have all of you present with us here in the sanctuary, wherever you are, or wherever you are in the LA Basin, around the United States, or beyond. We are glad that you are here. If you are new to our community, you can find many ways to learn more about our community and become involved on our website. Please know that as we navigate our new normal, we are gathering slightly differently and safely, still holding many small meetings and small group gatherings online. We offer programs to serve the needs of the congregation, to be of service to the larger world, including broad religious exploration and personal development for people of all ages. We also join with social justice advocates to work for justice and harmony in our world. Unitarian Universalism is not defined by creed or dogma, but is guided by principles that affirm the worth and dignity of every person. They also encourage an individual search for truth and meaning. We honor the wonder of existence and believe that we are all connected to each other and to the interdependent web of life. Our beliefs are drawn from scripture and science, nature and philosophy, personal experience, and ancient tradition. We are an open, affirming, and welcoming congregation, diverse in backgrounds, identities, spiritualities, and philosophies of life. We are united in our desire to create an inclusive, beloved community to live the principles of our faith and to serve the wider world. Whatever your beliefs or faith tradition, we invite you to help us build a community where together in our diversity we may covenant in love and justice. May you find comfort, camaraderie, and inspiration here. As we gather in this space and in our virtual spaces, we recognize that we are connected with one another through the winds that bring down those extra palm leaves, that put some leaves on our carpet. All of that wind that makes sure that we are connected to one another, gives air to all beings, through the waters that move deep into the earth and up into the sky. We acknowledge that the ground beneath our feet is and always has been the home of indigenous peoples, many of whom have been forcibly removed to other lands. I have a few announcements this morning. 'Tis the season. Our UUSM Thanksgiving dinner event is next Sunday, the 20th. This year, we are having our Thanksgiving gathering right after the service. So the 20th, 1 p.m., out in the courtyard. This is just to make it easier for everybody to attend and for safety precautions. Please go to the table outside and sign up. Let everybody know that you're coming and maybe something that you want to bring. This coming Saturday, November 19th, from 1 to 3 p.m., the Green Living and Facilities Committee are hosting a garden spruce up to prepare for the Thanksgiving feast the next day. Please see the announcement on the website for other thoughts and details, because she's written a whole bunch there. I know the last time that we had a cleanup day, the kids had a great time. Right, Quinn? Did you have fun? Yeah. The UUSM Choir presents Elizabeth Alexander's Kindling, Small Reflections of a Limitless Faith. This cantata is comprised of stories and discoveries, both intimate and universal, based on Unitarian Universalism's 6 sources of religion. The concert will be on November 18th at 7 p.m., and a $15 donation is requested. You're more than welcome to give more if you like. There will be a post-concert reception in the courtyard. As gatherings go, this is one of my favorites. The energy and the joy at the party after the show will surely fill your heart in these darkening days. Due to the Thanksgiving feast on the 20th, the Peace and Social Justice meeting, which is normally held on the 3rd Saturdays of the month, is being rescheduled to today after the service at 12 p.m. all are welcome to join the Faith in Action Peace and Social Justice Committee's November meeting to discuss election results and more. Other topics on our plate will include organizing support for reproductive rights and abortion access in the wake of the Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade, anti-racism learning and action, local economic justice and human rights campaigns, and support for the uprising in Iran. Lastly, where'd it go? You can be a little jealous, I know, but I already purchased this, so you cannot purchase it. I did get the best piece out there, but Betty Barclay is hosting a little art thing. You can buy your, turtles, that's me. There's something really special about walking around your home and seeing the artwork of your community members. Like, we come here to enjoy each other, and we love that part of it, but, honestly, you can have that at home too, just by walking around. And not to be morbid, but these people are not going to be here forever, and you will get to, experience their love and their emotion every day after that. So please go outside and get one of Betty Barclay's art pieces. Please refer to our website for more details. Please rise in body or in spirit to join us in our opening hymn, The Covenant and the Hymn of Praise. Our opening hymn this morning is number 210, Wade in the Water. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, thus do we covenant with each other. El amor es la enseñanza de esta iglesia. Buscar la verdad es el sacramento, y el servicio es la oración. Vivir juntos en paz, buscar el conocimiento en la libertad, servir a la humanidad en comunión, así es como convenimos unos a otros. I'm loving our next guest, who is singing her hymn of praise and learning all about technology. We could always use some extra support. I'd like to introduce Shauna and her daughter Zia, who are going to tell us a little bit more about our Time for All Ages.
Hi, everyone. Okay, I'll start and say if you have any food to bring up for the West Side Food Bank, you may bring it up now, and you can put it in this basket right here.
All month long, we are learning about our Unitarian Universalist Service Committee and its partnerships with grassroots organizations working locally across the globe to address injustices in their communities. The Guest at Your Table program brings together UUs of all ages across the country and around the world during the holiday season to raise money for UUSC partners like Ineza Umuhoza Grace, a young woman from Rwanda who is still sharing her story of the impact of unchecked capitalism on her community. By supporting the UUSC's Guest at Your Table program, we support Ineza. We lift up her story and we make it possible for young people like Ineza, half a world away, to imagine and work for a more sustainable future. After the service, you'll have the opportunity to meet other guests. Out on the patio, we'll have flyers about our UUSC guests and the kinds of projects you'll be supporting when you participate in the program. You can also pick up a Guest at Your Table box that you can take home and put on your dinner table. Every time you have dinner, right on through the holiday season, you are invited to think about the guests at your table and drop some money into the box. Whether it's $1 a meal or $20, your donation, your mindful consideration of the parents in our world will make a difference. We'll collect the boxes after the holidays and share the donations with the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee in the new year.
Thank you. And now we will see a video of what Zia just talked about.
And raised in Rwanda. During my lifetime, our temperature has increased far more than the global average. This was not driven by us. People in the least developed country, like mine, emit 35 times less carbon than those in high-income countries. Rwandans rely heavily on the land, and we are used to coping with the long rainy season and the challenge of our mountainous landscape. But climate change is making things worse, and we are being pushed beyond our ability to adapt. Rain erodes soil and kill livestock. Land degradation affects the whole community, displacing thousands. My family had a small and cozy home, but like so many others, had to live with just their clothes and bags, forced to move to a communal house. The last period of intense rainfall lasted for 5 months. It destroyed roads and health centers, leading to over 130 deaths. These damages are profound. These losses are irreversible. Climate change disproportionately affects rural girls and women. Daily tasks such as collecting water and cooking wood are made increasingly difficult by droughts and floods that wash away agricultural income, leaving them with nothing. Youth-led climate action can bring these stories of loss and damage that go unseen and unheard to the fore. We have the power and the knowledge to develop solutions, but we need the right financial support. Our call is for developed countries of the world to listen and to act.
Thank you for that powerful video. Let us sing our song of blessing and sing our youth out to their RE classes.
Let us create spaciousness together by settling into this moment and freeing ourselves from the routine distractions, stresses, and demands of life. Let us instead find the peace that pervades this moment and make our home there for this brief period of stillness and calm. Let us connect with the rhythm of our breath. Each inhalation bringing us deeper into this present moment, deeper into our own beings, more present to life. And each exhalation, releasing anything that's keeping us from being in this present moment, in the depths of our beings, attentive to this gift of life. Breathing in, we become more present and more attuned, more at one with ourselves, with spirit, with the world we inhabit. Let us breathe and dwell in this spaciousness, hearts open and awake to our living. We have a few joys and sorrows to share with the community this morning. We begin with a joy. Beloved church member Betty Barclay is pleased to share that her book, Discovering Inner Gold, a Spiritual Memoir, is now available. Her book explores the expansion of consciousness she's experienced over the past 50 years that has guided her to living a spirit-filled life of meaning and purpose. Her essays in the book are each introduced with a piece of her artwork, and her son David used his skills to create the beautiful cover and prepare the art and the manuscript for publication. So copies are going to be available after the service at the Art Wall reception, where some of her work, as we've heard about, will be on display, and they can also be purchased on Amazon. I'm also received news, though we don't usually do birthday announcements, that today is someone's special birthday, so I would like us to wish our dear and talented musician Ryan Humphrey a happy birthday. And we have one other joy to share. I am thrilled to share the news that our beloved church member, Tom Peters, where are you, Tom? In the back corner over there, was just elected to the Board of Trustees of Santa Monica College. Congratulations, Tom. And lastly, in moments of sorrow, we also continue to hold our beloved church member, Eric Paisel, and his entire family in the light of beloved community following the death of his mother, Audrey Marie Paycel, at the age of 91 on October 30th. She is greatly missed. Our mindfulness meditation this morning is a responsive litany, When I Change, by my dear friend and colleague, the Reverend Tet Gallardo. You're invited to this meditation to receive these words and to offer this response. When I change, the world changes, to each meditative affirmation. So the response to each affirmation is, when I change, the world changes. We are here to derive meaning in our actions. When I change, the world changes. We are here to win our power back over areas of powerlessness. When I change, the world changes. We are here to deepen our understanding of ourselves in order to strengthen self-discipline. We are here to abolish prejudice with an appreciation for our diversity and difference. When I change, the world changes. We are here to feel our personal power and our capacity to affect the lives of other people. When I change, the world changes. We are here to become teachers to each other. We are here to spend time away from the usual influences and to relearn reality. When I change, the world changes. When God gives me the desire, I am also given the power and means to achieve my goals. When I change, the world changes. I am here to see that my singular life is a gateway to countless possibilities. And so may the world be changed. Let us meditate together on such change in the silence for a few brief minutes. I will ring our singing bowl to begin and end our time for silent meditation. Beloved community, is at the heart of the aspirations of our liberal faith tradition. The eighth principle project of Unitarian Universalism, the movement for the inclusion of an eighth UU principle that incorporates anti-racist and counter-oppressive commitments into this core statement of our tradition, defines beloved community as what happens when people of diverse racial, ethnic, educational, class, gender, abilities, sexual orientations, and backgrounds and identities come together in an interdependent relationship of love, mutual respect, and care that seeks to realize justice in the community and in the broader world. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. popularized this concept through his preaching and activism that was dedicated to a renewed vision of the human community. We have learned to fly through the air like birds and swim the sea like fish, but we have not learned the simple art of living together as siblings, he once observed. The civil disobedience, prophetic witness, and bold resistance of an entire generation of social and spiritual activists gave birth to his dream of a society of enduring nonviolence, respect, justice, and peace, the beloved community. In the 5 decades since his death, many have struggled to bring this kind of world into being. And our liberal religious movement has at times been a part of that struggle, and at other times we've been on the sidelines, and at other times we've actively resisted it. The eighth principle project is asking us to come to terms with our complex history as Unitarian Universalists and to side with love in our day by affirming and promoting the eighth principle, journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. The path of change is our Soul Matters theme for community contemplation this month. As we journey towards that greater spiritual wholeness together, we're passing through a spiritual threshold that's asking us to change. Now, this is a theme that can evoke all sorts of emotion for us to process because of the uncertainty that change sometimes brings. The meaning of the word itself evolved over time, and this is telling. It once meant to substitute one thing for another, and it eventually became to mean to become different or altered. Now, when we're invited to change, it can invoke fears, anxieties, and fragilities because we worry that maybe we'll get lost in the change, that older meaning of to substitute one thing for another, rather than to see change as an invitation to simply become different, to grow as people. A commitment to accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions really means growing into more of who we are by truly embodying our liberal religious principles and values. It asks us to live into the world we dream of, right here and now, by engaging in the work and the struggle to repair the lethal and traumatic legacies of white supremacy and other oppressions in the world. Accountably dismantling racism and other oppressions invites us to do the work our larger world has often neglected or resisted or been complacent to, and to reject immersion into a white supremacist culture that's deeply invested in keeping things the way they are, or even dialing back the clock on progressive societal changes like affirmative action, the right to vote, the right to choose when to give birth. We have to persistently show up and struggle with oppressive societal forces to be revolutionary in the transformation we seek for ourselves and for all of our siblings. The Reverend Dr. Andrea Avazian, a social justice leader and self-described veteran of nearly every peace and social change movement since the 1960s, lifts up an exchange that once occurred between a reporter and the American clergy person and activist A.J. Musti, who is remembered for his leadership in the labor, pacifist, anti-war, and civil rights movements. A reporter once asked him, "Do you really think you're going to change the policies of this country by standing out here alone at night in front of the White House with a candle?" A.J. Musti replied softly, "Oh, I don't do this to change the country. I do this so the country won't change me." We often have to embody the change that we want to see in the world, despite many people, institutions, and society itself resisting it. Mahatma Gandhi had once observed, "We but mirror the world. All the tendencies present in the world are found within. As a person changes themselves, so does the attitude of the world change. This is the divine mystery supreme. A wonderful thing it is, and the source of our happiness," in their movement of nonviolent resistance. "We need not wait to see what others do," unquote. So all the change we wish to see in the world doesn't start out there somewhere. It begins with ourselves. This is no different when it comes to dismantling white supremacy and other oppressions. The historian and philosopher Howard Zinn once noted, "Missing from history are the countless small actions of unknown people that led up to these great moments of social change." When we understand this, we can see that the tiniest acts of protest in which we may engage may become the invisible roots of societal change. I would add that it's not only these tiny acts of protest, but the small ways that we practice embodying change, and in our congregation practices embodying change, that will serve as the invisible roots of societal transformation. Rhonda McGee of the Inner Work of Racial Justice observes, "We need an ecological approach to justice that includes inner work, interpersonal work, and intercultural systematic work," meaning working within ourselves and between ourselves, and then working to change the systems we're living in. Our congregation's Intersectional Anti-Racism and Anti-Oppression Commission has encouraged us to remember that this work begins at home through personal and interpersonal contemplative practice, and not rushing to fix other people or fight societal racism. Our continued engagement with the beloved Conversations program from Meadville Lombard Theological School also begins by helping us all to become more self-aware of how racism and other oppressions thrive or not within ourselves before we attempt to address the implicit and explicit racism and oppression in our larger society. Now, white supremacy culture, this kind of a triggering word for some, and yet a reality that we all swim in, exists at a personal level as prejudice. And then it exists at communal levels through cultural assumptions, and through societal levels as the violent, unjust, and unequal racialized structuring of society. In this society, it is white people who have historically and presently exerted dominant power to create, sustain, and perpetuate a culture of white domination. And so the work of dismantling racism is the responsibility of who? White people. Racism was once understood to simply be personal prejudice, but today it's understood to be personal prejudice allied with the dominant cultural assumptions, distributions of power and wealth, and societal structuring. So it's more than just personal prejudice. The personal prejudice exists because it's in this whole ecosystem of white supremacy. So though any person of any color can express racial prejudice, racism is something specifically understood to be exercised in conjunction with the white supremacist cultural norms and power structures. Angela Davis notes, in a racist society, it's not enough to be non-racist. We must be anti-racist. Non-racist, this is me now, allows the racialized violence, injustice, and inequality to continue unaddressed, whereas anti-racist works to confront, challenge, and dismantle it. Now, beloved, communities is the possibility that arises when we all commit to this work and create that kind of place of belonging, justice, equality, and affection for all. A beloved community is a multicultural, multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-religious, and as my late Ibrahim Baba used to say, multi reality because of its broad embrace of people in all of their differences. As Audre Lorde had observed, it's not those differences that divide us. It's our inability to recognize, sometimes we don't even see or acknowledge the differences that exist among us. So this inability to recognize and then to accept and to embrace each other in our differences, and then to not only recognize and accept, but to celebrate those differences. Creating and maintaining a diverse, beloved community in a congregation requires that we be conscious of how the assumptions of a white culture and other dominant groups often operate as cultural norms in any organization or community, and it requires that we hold space for the antidotes to those cultural norms. Dismantling Racism, a workbook for social change groups by Kenneth Jones and Tema Okun, identifies many of the cultural assumptions present in white dominant spaces and offers antidotes to create more inclusive spaces. Now, although Jones and Okun begin with identifying and detailing 13 characteristics of white supremacy culture, we will explore only 3 today in detail, and perhaps continue our exploration on some other Sundays. Thanksgiving might be a good holiday for us to continue. These initial white supremacist cultural characteristics include, and I really want us to kind of let these sink in so that we can become aware of how they operate in our system, because they do. Perfectionism, a sense of urgency, and either-or thinking. So let's kind of think deeply as we dive into some of the details of their observations here and how these characteristics show up in our church, or maybe in your workplaces, or at home, or just with yourself. Perfectionism shows up in organizations as little appreciation expressed among people for the work that others are doing. Appreciation that is expressed is usually directed at those who get the most credit anyway. It is more common to point out either how a person or their work is inadequate, or even more common to talk with others about the inadequacy of a person and their work without ever directly talking to them. Mistakes are seen as personal. Doing wrong is identified with being wrong. There's little time, energy, or money put into reflecting or identifying lessons learned that can improve practice, and there's little ability to identify or name or appreciate what's going right. The antidotes to a culture of perfectionism, when it arises, is developing a culture of appreciation, where an organization takes the time to make sure that people's works and efforts are acknowledged and appreciated. Developing a learning organization where it's expected that everyone will make mistakes, and those mistakes offer opportunities for growth. Creating an environment where people can recognize that mistakes, even mistakes, sometimes lead to positive results, and separating the person from the mistake. When offering feedback, always speaking to the things that went right before offering criticism, and asking people to offer specific suggestions on how to do things differently when offering criticism. So those are all things that we've been practicing, embodying, creating this learning community and this culture of gratitude as an antidote to a culture of perfectionism and its limitations. Now, a sense of urgency shows up in our organizations as a continued sense of urgency that makes it difficult to be inclusive, encourage or democratic and or thoughtful decision-making, to think long-term, or to consider consequences. It frequently results in sacrificing potential allies for quick and highly visible results. For example, sacrificing the interests of communities of color in order to win victories for white people, seen as the default or norm community. This may be reinforced by funding proposals which promise too much work for too little money, or by funders who expect too much for too little. The antidotes that Jones and Okun identify include realistic work plans, leadership that understand things take longer than anyone expects, discussing and planning what it means to set goals of inclusivity and diversity, particularly in terms of time, learning from past experience about how long things actually take, writing realistic funding proposals with realistic time frames, and being clear about how you will make good decisions in an atmosphere of urgency. So if you've been in a group meeting with me and you have ever heard me call out that it seems like we are operating from a place of urgency and we need to breathe some spaciousness into that, that's what that's about. Lastly, either or thinking, none of us are familiar with that, shows up in organizations as things are either or, good, bad, right, wrong, for us, against us. And it's closely linked to perfectionism and making it difficult to learn from mistakes or to accommodate conflict. There's no sense that things can be both and. It results in trying to simplify complex things. For example, believing that poverty is simply a result of a lack of education. It creates conflict and increases the sense of urgency, as people feel that they have to make decisions to do either this or that with no time to consider or encourage alternatives, particularly those which may require more time or resources. Antidotes to this either-or thinking, including noticing when people use either-or language and push to come up with more than two alternatives. Notice when people are simplifying complex issues, particularly when the stakes seem high or an urgent decision needs to be made. Slow down and encourage people to do a deeper analysis. When people are faced with an urgent decision, take a break and give people some breathing room to think creatively. Avoid making any decisions under extreme pressure. Now, I know our leadership has gotten a lot of practice in this in the past few years, but this is another way that we limit ourselves as a community when we fall into either-or thinking. A beloved community invites us to consider the ways in which a culture of perfectionism, a pervading sense of urgency, and either-or thinking limits our capacities to be inclusive and that multi community. Now, although these may seem to be innocuous cultural assumptions to some, I have found time and time again how they diminish potential and can keep us from being the type of beloved community we may aspire to be. So let us invoke that culture of appreciation and learning. Let us breathe into spaciousness and careful reflection when we are confronted with a sense of urgency. And let us always think to consider the both and then some, when we're challenged by polarization and dualities. To the collective liberation we may find in a culture of appreciation, learning, spaciousness, and both and thinking. Amen, and blessed be.
Our practice here at UUSM is to dedicate half of our non-pledge Sunday offering to the life of our church, and the other half to give to organizations doing work in the world that advances our Unitarian Universalist principles. This month, half of our Sunday offering will go to the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. The UUSC strategically supports grassroots human rights organizations across the globe, building a more just world for all people. UUSC partners are addressing the climate crisis in the Pacific Islands. They are helping asylum seekers in Central and North America to create better futures for themselves, and they are supporting communities in Haiti and beyond as they rebuild their lives on the way to a just recovery. This is the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee's longest running intergenerational fundraising program. I picked up my box last week in the courtyard, and I've been putting money in at every meal, so I encourage you to do the same. Gifts to this program advance community-led human rights initiatives around the world in over 20 countries. You may donate by text, online with our website, or by check. To donate by text, use the instructions that are at the end of the order of service, or sometimes up there on the slide, and specify the amount that you'd like to donate with the code GCC, which stands for Generous Congregation Contribution. For text donations, a one-time only credit card registration is required. Thank you so much for all that you give monetarily, and especially for all that you do that gives of yourselves to build our community. Thank you for your generosity. I invite the ushers to come forward as we will now give and receive this morning's offering.
Please rise in body or in spirit for our closing hymn, Freedom is Coming. Oh freedom, Oh, freedom, freedom is coming. Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom, freedom is coming. Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom, freedom is coming. Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom, freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Freedom is coming. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know.
May you go in peace. May you hold fast to that which is good. May you return to no person evil for evil, but strengthen the faint of heart, support the weak, help the afflicted, honor all beings. May you go forth into this day and be blessed, and may you be that blessing. Amen.